Hi everyone, welcome to the Live Your Dream podcast, episode 13, how world travel inspired Katrina Markoff's $30 million Vosges Haut-Chocolat brand. I'm your host, Lena. Before I start the show today, I want to give a shout out to my listener who left a review for my podcast on iTunes. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Philia said, "You have to listen. Inspirational. Selena's interviews really bring us up close and personal to influential figures who have dared and succeeded in ways we all fantasize about. We get raw insight into the personal struggles and triumphs of amazing personalities in a way only Selena knows how. Looking forward to all her upcoming interviews." Wow, thank you so much, Philia. I'm so grateful that you took the time to not only listen to my show, but to write me this amazing review. You have totally made my day. If you got any value from listening to my podcast, I would really appreciate it if you can take just a few minutes to give me a rating and write me a review. It would really help me to spread the word and get discovered by new listeners. It's really easy to do it on iTunes, and I may give you a shout out in the future episode. So, as some of you know, I have the biggest sweet tooth. I can probably eat more sweets than anybody you know. One time when I was in Paris, there were so many chocolate stores and macaron shops and dessert cafes that I wanted to visit, but I didn't have enough time, so I started eating dessert for breakfast. Yes, this is true. And I was so happy to have visited all the places I wanted to go. So yes, I love sweets, and since Valentine's Day is coming up in 2 weeks, I am sharing with you today a conversation I had with Katrina Markoff, the founder of one of my absolute favorite chocolate brand, Vosges Haut-Chocolat. Here's a little background story about why I decided to interview Katrina. After graduating from law school, I came to New York City to study for the bar exam, and I was living in Soho at the time, and of course, I was staring at law books all day trying to study. And the only highlight of my day was to take a break and visit a Vosges store in Soho and buy chocolate. It was like a brief escape from my depressing reality of having to study all day. Since I was going to the store like almost every day, people there started to recognize me and ask me questions, and I told them I was studying for the bar exam and how hard it was, and they would give me pep talks and wish me good luck on the exam, and I just felt so much better after because I had a nice interaction with really kind people. The store was really beautiful too, all purple with chandeliers, and most importantly, the chocolate was so delicious. So I am so excited to share with you the conversation I had with Katrina, who created this beautiful chocolate company. After studying chemistry and psychology in college, Katrina moved to Paris to pursue her dream of studying the culinary arts at Le Cordon Bleu. She then worked at the legendary restaurant El Bulli in Spain, which was one of the toughest restaurants in the world to get a reservation, with more than 3,000 people on the waiting list. She then embarked on a journey to travel around the world. Her travels inspired her to create Vosges by blending exotic ingredients like curry and bacon and chipotle chili with premium chocolate. Katrina shared with me how trusting her intuition and following her heart led to an amazing journey where all of her life experiences came together to create a beautiful chocolate brand. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Katrina, I'm so excited to start this conversation. Oh my gosh. We are at the Vosges Haut-Chocolat. Did I pronounce that right?
Vosges Haut-Chocolat. Perfect.
The temple in Chicago, surrounded by beautiful chocolate and, oh my gosh, so many beautiful things. So thanks so much for being here. Let's start with your childhood. Where did you grow up?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I'm Macedonian, so grew up in sort of that more ethnic background household, a family that cooked a lot. I grew up next to my grandparents, like literally next door. So my mom, who was a single mom who had to work, and she worked a lot, was gone a lot. And so I would hang out with my grandmother, and we would cook a lot. She'd make her own yogurt, her own phyllo dough. So I grew up in Indiana with a very close family.
So you grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. I think your mom was also an entrepreneur. How did that affect you in who you wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, if, like, I guess many immigrant type families, you often become entrepreneurs and scrappy and try to figure things out. And so my mom had needed to help my grandfather after he had a heart attack with her business. And she was really young, really like 21. And so she jumped into that business. And
what kind of business was it?
It was janitorial supplies. So totally different
from what you do.
Yes. And she was really, really good at it. And she was, she never finished college, and she was incredibly charismatic and optimistic and quirky personality. And I think she did so well selling. And in the 80s, when the EPA was formed and all the janitors were dealing with the waste and they were just really dumping it down the drain, she started working with them to recycle the waste. And so she kind of started this, she did start this like hazardous waste removal recycling business. And so I saw a very much sort of very meager beginning, I'll say. We didn't have much money. And my mom kind of made it, and she created this environmental business, and it was just really cool. And she was always like, if you want it, just do it. Like, she never judged much. She just sort of was so encouraging. And so I saw this entrepreneurial spirit super early.
Yeah. I read that you had a lemonade stand and then also a cake business in high school.
Yes,
so you started early.
Yes. So we lived on this, like, kind of like this interstate, like, busy road, and there'd be a lot of like traffic in front of our road. And so we would have these garage sales, and I would run them with my siblings, and I just got really into that. And I made easy bake oven cakes and sold them there, and of course lemonade. And then in high school, I had my own cake business.
And then you went to college at Vanderbilt, and then you studied chemistry and psychology.
I know. I loved chemistry in high school. I had an amazing professor, and so I did all those advanced chemistry classes because I just had a great teacher. And then when I went to Vanderbilt, I thought I'd continue that. But then I got to my end of my senior year, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't want to go to these career fairs, and I don't want to, I don't know. I felt uncomfortable interviewing. It was such an awkward thing. And I was a free spirit, and I didn't really, I don't know. I guess I just never saw myself working for someone. And I wanted to follow my heart into something I loved. And my degrees were so broad that I didn't really connect with them on a sort of tangible level. And it was never about money necessarily for me. I didn't want to take a job just because it paid well out of school. Like, I wanted to like do something that was going to make a difference. Right. And I had this mom who was like wildly supportive of following your heart in a very irreverent way. And when I graduated from Vanderbilt, there was no celebrity chef thing. I mean, there was Julia Childs, but it wasn't like what you see today, right? I didn't have modeling about what I could do in food. There weren't cool food companies. Mm-hmm. There wasn't storytelling in food. And so I was like, but I knew that I needed to follow my instincts, because I always had, like, I really believe in following signs. Like, everything means something to me. And especially when I was younger, like, I just always believed in my destiny was like just pointing me in directions, and all I needed to do was pay attention. So that was a moment where I was like, I know I love cooking. I know I love it. It's the way I communicate. Because I was a pretty shy kid. I had an older brother and a younger sister. So I was I guess the middle children, I don't know if they're like quieter or passed over or whatever. They have to like find their way to speak. And my way to speak was by making cakes. Like, that was the way I started conversations. Like, in high school, I had the cake business and at the lemonade stand, and
like your mom would come home and you would like decorate her room and then and bake for her.
Yes. That was my way of showing gratitude to my mom.
Expressing love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was it. And it was so funny. Like, I think now I just probably wasn't the most like literary, strong person or something, because that was really how I did it. It was by creating experiences, and like, it was around food. Yeah. So looking back now, it's very easy to see, oh my gosh, I can see how that influenced me today. And that was sort of just my nature.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you make the decision to, go to Paris and study cooking?
Well, I had been given this book by a woman who was, I guess, a mentor for me. And it was called Where the Heart Leads You, Success Will Follow. I think she must have self-published it because I can't find the book anymore.
I tried looking for that book too.
But it's maybe I need to write it. It's or maybe you need to write it because you were talking so much about that. It was so awesome because it basically had a series of what I'd call manifestation exercises, but things that you would go and write in a beautiful natural place. Like, what do I truly love? Like, what comes to my mind first? And it was sort of like this brain mapping. And I was, kept talking about cooking and horses and kind of circled the cooking thing. And then I went for it and I was like, Mom, I really think I want to go to culinary school. And she's like, what? And she's like, well, if you're going to go to the best school you can go to. And so I looked up schools and found Cordon Bleu in Paris. And I didn't want to do the U.S. schools because most of them were like really long multi-year programs. And I just did college. I didn't want to do something. I just want to learn how to cook. I didn't care about the business of cooking. I didn't care about the sanitation of cooking. I didn't care about, I just wanted to learn. So I moved to Paris, right after school and thought I'd stay there for a few months, but ended up staying there for a year and a half and loved it and got to go to the Cordon Bleu and then got to realize, I kind of realized the French were so, as I called it, provincial and so dedicated to Escoffier and the methodology of that type of cooking. And I felt like there was so much disruption that needed to happen. And then I found El Bulli.
Yeah. How was that for working for the legendary chef?
I know. That was just radical for me coming from the formal French, more traditional, haute cuisine, as I'd say, to Ferran, who didn't have a gas line in the restaurant. So it was all electric. And in France, you would never think of cooking on electric, right? And that was the first thing I was like, wow, this is really unique. And then, I had these amazing conversations with him because my friend Maria, who we went together, her father had helped his best friend adopt a baby. So we were sort of connected to him in a way that was a little bit deeper than the typical stagiaire.
I see.
And he would say what do you want to do next? And I'd say, oh, I want to work at Michelin 3-star restaurants. And he's like, oh, what a waste of your time.
Yeah,
don't do that. And I'm like, what? Really? He said, no, you have to use your own imagination and your own sense of taste to create something. And that's how I heard it, and he didn't speak English. So I heard it, I think, in French, and he spoke French pretty well, but whatever. It was just interesting, two different languages, not foreign tongues. And it sort of changed my whole life from there. And I ended up traveling with my friend Maria around the world to study food. We bought a ticket around the world and
wow. Where did you go? There. What did you see?
Oh, it was amazing. We saw, mostly I would say, Southeast Asia was the place that really, it was my first entry to Asia. I had never been there before, and to see the ingredients that they have there so fresh and so vivid and so in front of you and all the smells. And it was shocking to me being this girl from Indiana and it blew my mind. So, that's kind of where I was like, whoa. And I started writing all these recipes, modern dessert recipes, because I thought that we'd write a book together, Maria and I. And I quickly knew I wasn't going to be a chef.
Well, how did you know that?
The environment of a kitchen was really built for a very different person than myself. In general, I felt like the way I was spoken to and looked at was not jiving with how I wanted to be. I felt like coming in as a stagiaire and a woman in a kitchen, which was definitely a minority in the kitchen to be a woman, like some of the chefs would, be really inappropriate with you, flirting with you, suggestions. And then if you didn't play their game, they could be incredibly rude and mean. And I didn't like that. And I didn't want to become this hard edged, tough mouth. I didn't want to be that person. Like I just wanted to be me. And I didn't feel like I really could be me because in the kitchen, there's so much of a hierarchy. So, I would never call myself a chef, because you're not a chef until you're the executive chef. Like you're just a cook. And in the US, when I came back, I remember that being such a shock to me because people would say they were chef, but they weren't the executive chef. So I'm like, I would never call myself a chef. Like, it was just different. And you rely so much on obviously people coming into your physical location to interact with them. And I didn't like that limitation either. So I was thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to do now? Oh my God, I just sold my family that I wanted to be a chef. And I went to Paris and culinary school and traveled around the world. And now I don't want to do that. And
when you're traveling around the world, like you'd go to like different countries and just get a job there and cook at the restaurant. Like, how did you do that?
Well, we ended up meeting a chef from a hotel who, because chefs in hotels, they move a lot. Like people in the hotel business, they tend to move all over globally. They work in, we were, 5-star hotel type restaurants. And so these chefs were just so kind to help and connect. So they would connect us with the chef at the Mandarin Oriental in Bangkok, or, the chef at the Dusitani in southern, Hua Hin in Thailand. So it just kind of one reference to the next, and Peninsula in Hong Kong. And it was just like, so we got to meet all these amazing people along the way, and never was it really planned. It just was like, it was so highly intuitive and flowy, and it was so highly trust in the universe, that whole trip. I mean, I was 21 or 22, like traveling around with my girlfriend in Asia and Europe by ourselves, figuring it out. It was just the most extraordinary experience. Wow. I was so blessed. And it was an interesting conflict too, because I also felt like, my God, what am I doing with my life? By comparison, my friends are at these great companies, whether it was
like the normal jobs,
the Goldman Sachs's and the Anderson and all these consulting, and I was not making an income and feeling like, by comparison, am I going to ever make it? Am I, the doubts that come,
of course,
which are always there.
Of
and
course.
Then, but yeah, you also have this sort of like instinctual like following that you have to do this and that it will make sense eventually, and believing in that path was going to be okay. And so I get back essentially to the States, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a chef. And then
was your mom like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do now?
Yes. She's like, oh my God, are you going to just like live off of me forever? Like, what's the deal? And I'm like, no, I couldn't. I wasn't that person. I wasn't built to do that. Right. I needed, like everybody, you need to do something that you feel like you love and that could make a difference. And so
how did you have the idea to start a chocolate company after, working at El Bulli, going to Le Cordon Bleu before that, and then traveling all around the world, working in all this amazing kitchen in so many different countries? Like, how did that idea come to you to start a chocolate company?
Well, so my uncle, he was really my mom's first cousin, but he was down in Dallas, and he had said, why don't you come and help me? I'm starting this company, and you can just help me do everything and anything. You'll learn while you're figuring out what you want to do next. Because I had intended to write like a cookbook, a modern dessert cookbook with my friend. But she didn't end up liking any of my ideas, which was totally another heartbreak for me. No. And I was at ground zero again. And so I went to Dallas, and I started, helping him and being like, what am I going to do next? Because this didn't work out either. So now I have very little direction on where I'm going to go. And he said, I need you to do everything. So first task is help me buy beautiful furniture and plates, and we're going to sell them online. And this was 20 years ago. So this is the beginning of website e-commerce, stuff. And we're going to put it in a catalog. So I would go and help him pick these furniture pieces and plates. And it's like, now you have to remember, people aren't able to touch this. So they need to have you help them describe it as if they were in front of it. Like, what are the attributes? Who made it? How is it crafted? Why is that special? You've got to tell a story. I said, okay. So then I wrote the copy for all of these things to put into the catalog and onto the website. And then he said, okay, now we have to shoot it, so I need you to help photo style it. So like bring props and like think again, like, what's the scene? What's the environment? What makes this interesting? So then I learned a lot about photo styling. And then he'd have me, of course, answer the phone for the customers. He'd have me ship the product. And he said, okay, now we're going to plan for the fourth quarter books for holiday. And people love to buy foodstuffs. Go to the mart and see what you can find. And I went and I saw like an incredible amount of boxed chocolates and fondants and things like that. And I started tasting them and they were, terrible. It was, super sweet flavorings, artificial this, artificial that. And people believed these brands were quality brands and they were actually eating things that weren't good for them.
Yeah.
So I started to think about that. And Neiman Marcus was based in Dallas, which was just such an iconic, department store, talk about experience and their heritage. It was just incredible. So that was a big influence too, just being around them. And they had an epicure department and I saw the food that they carried in that. And then I went home, to my apartment one night and I had on this necklace from the Nagaland tribes in India. And for some reason, I just loved this necklace. It just had such an energy to it. And then I started reading a lot about the Nagaland people and realizing how special this culture was. And I went into my kitchen and I had all these ingredients for my travels because, again, I was going to write this cookbook and I made this curry and coconut with milk chocolate truffle and I decided to name it Naga. It had this sort of copywriting and like this storytelling in me. So it was like in that moment where it was like this lightning bolt flash of like an epiphany. And I was like, oh my God, like this is the white space. This is like what I'm meant to do. Like to tell stories about these places and people and religions and ingredients that I fell in love with on my travels through this medium of chocolate. And chocolate is the medium and it's so powerful, but it's the story that's really the connection here between, and it's the sort of opposites attracting, like things that didn't go together naturally or that made it sort of exciting, at least to me exciting.
Yeah.
And there was nothing fresh in the marketplace. There was nothing telling stories. There were people that wanted to give beautiful gifts. There really wasn't luxury chocolate. And there wasn't soulful chocolate. And so the whole thing that night came together in this fury of making all these chocolates with all these ingredients, olive oil and paprika and wasabi and curry. And it was wild. And I named them all and I wrote stories for them and I brought them into the office the next day and people were like, that's disgusting. I'm like, why? Just try it. And like, it was wild because people didn't want to try it. I mean, this was, I don't know the audience here, but whoever knew about food in 20 years will remember that like there weren't exotic ingredients in food. Not in potato chips, not in like tea, not in chocolate. So it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
For people. But when you tried it, I could see people's faces change. They were shocked and stunned and amazed and like intrigued and like curious. And I thought, my God, this is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
Open people's minds up to new ideas through chocolate and through story. And will we become a more open to cultural diversity? Will we become more less judgmental about others and more curious about others as opposed to like, I don't like whatever, like start with curiosity, not negativity and judgment. So it was that made me be like, I'm in the right place. This is what I need to do. This means something to me, and I think means something to other people. And I
think that's what I loved about your brand, because I feel like there's a story you want to tell about different cultures and different people through your chocolate. And I think, in the same way that when you for the first time, brought to people like chocolate with curry or spices or bacon or whatever exotic ingredients, people are like, no, ew, gross, I don't want to try that. I think that is very similar in a way. A lot of times people are fearful of the unknown. So it's because they didn't have any contact or exposure to different people, different race, different culture, different language, that they are afraid of what's different from them. But once you try the chocolate, once you meet these people, hear their stories, they open their mind.
Yes.
So, you are making the world a more peaceful place, one chocolate at a time. Right?
Love it. That's right.
Traveling the world through chocolate, right?
Yes.
One love, one chocolate. I love it. How did you come up with the name Vosges?
Well, I had, when I lived in Paris, I had always had the hardest time saying the Place de Vosges. So basically I never went there because I didn't want to tell the taxi driver. Because I would always say it wrong. It was such a hard Germanic Alsatian word. And, but there was a Michelin 3-star restaurant there, which is still there, called L'Amboissy. And we had gone there, and the chef from the school at the Cordon Bleu had called ahead to the chef there and said, hey, can you take care of these people, these students for me? And so they had brought out something at the very end of the course that was a truffle beignet. And they had taken ganache, which is the center of the truffle, and they had frozen it and then dipped it in a beignet batter. And then while frying, the ganache started to get liquefied and melt. And so when it was perfectly brown and crispy, they'd take it out and they'd bring it straight to the table. And they say, you have to eat this à la minute. And you would pop this little crispy beignet in your mouth, and then like this burst of liquid chocolate. And I fell in love with chocolate that day, because as a kid, I had never liked chocolate. I didn't have good chocolate.
Right.
I thought chocolate tasted like sour milk. That's what I knew about it. And then I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And so, then I, went on my way, and then I kept thinking about, what would I call this chocolate company with these interesting ingredients, and what came up for me. And I have even the paper. So I wrote down all these names on this paper, the back of the paper, the front of the paper. I'm like, which one? I asked all these people, which one should I name my company? What am I going to do? And then I kept coming back to Vosges, because it was the moment that I fell in love with it. And I thought, I cannot call this Vosges because no one will ever be able to say it. And I'm just setting myself up for failure. And then I said, you know what? There are plenty of brands that people don't know how to say perfectly.
That's true.
And so, when you do know how to say it, you're sort of in the know.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just going to go with it. So then it was like Vosges Haut-Chocolat, meaning like like high level of chocolate, crafted couture, sort of relates to like haute couture, but in the way of chocolate. And, so then I just, again, I didn't overthink it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I found as I moved through my life, that I'd have moments in my life where I was like more insecure, or, or people must know better than me. And that's true. People do. But then there's some things that like you have to remember that you also weigh in as your own voice.
Yeah.
And you can't negate that and think everybody else is smarter than you.
Right.
Because like some things you just got to do it your way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to do it. So it's like always finding those times, like when is it right, the advice you get, and when is it right what your voice is saying.
Mm-hmm. And I think you started this company in 1998, mm-hmm. So it's been 20 years, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. This is your first time starting a company. So how did you know what to do?
I mean, it's my first time starting a company, and honestly, I've never had like a real job either. Like I worked in college, I worked in high school, but I mean, not like like I didn't start a career with an investment banker or something like you.
Most people will say, oh, I want to do this, but I don't have the experience. So I can't do that.
Exactly.
Right? So how did you have the courage to do it? How did you figure it all out?
You know what? I think there were a few things that happened along the way that made me really believe so much in myself. And I think the first thing was at a young age, I had a really strong pull from my inner voice or my intuitive self. I just did. I thought a lot. I had a lot of white downtown. I played outside a lot, and I got very close to what that voice is. Call it the soul, call it intuitive, call it, I don't know, and so that kind of made me feel strong that I had that connection. And I think also like being Macedonian, there was so much pride around that nobody probably even knows what Macedonian is, not many people, but for my family, the way I was raised to believe because I was Macedonian, I was special.
Oh, wow.
And so there was like a silent pride that was in me also. And then I had a mom, who was wild and took risk, and I sort of modeled. She's taken risks and failed, and she's also taken risks and won. And even on both sides of that, she has been optimistic, especially on the failure side.
Really?
If we had more time, and I could tell you about the stories of my mom's journey, and it's just incredible that things have happened to her, and this woman is not rocked by becoming negative. She didn't do it. She was just even more optimistic.
Amazing.
I'm just like, I get goosebumps thinking about, because imagine being raised by somebody like that.
Yeah.
It's so incredible. And so like, I think I just channeled that to no end. So when I started the company, I'm also quite competitive with my brother.
I see.
Who also had his own company. So we always had like this thing, and I was always racing against him, and he was always telling me I couldn't do it. And I was always saying like, I could. And so some people, people say you can't do it, and they like believe it. And some people, you say you can't do it, and they like want to fight you. I was more like, I'm going to fight you, prove you wrong, So it's just how I was born, and also what I saw. I think that's a little bit of it. And it's funny, here at Vosges, I am so proud to say there's been many people who have become entrepreneurs from this place. And that's really, I really hope for that, because people, a lot of people want to play safe and afraid of like risk. And then they come here and they're like, oh my God, she can do it. I can do it. Not that hard. No.
Speaking of which, you also started a company called Oh Philia. And then you created an accelerator program for girls in high school and college who have the dream of starting a business in food. Yeah, it goes right back to what you were saying.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that really is just a reflection of, giving back and kind of going back, and I love it. I love doing that. We've had 2 accelerators come through the program so far. This year we had this amazing woman, Jamie Kim, who is at Cornell. I think she's a senior this year, started this incredible granola business with grass-fed butter, and she's just super smart, and I mean just amazing. So to how it feels to help people with their dreams. It's basically the American dream. Like, we all believe in that, and we all like to help make that happen. So this is basically my way of doing that.
That's amazing. So it's been a 20-year journey for you. And I think Vosges even grew during the recession when all other companies were going out of business. And that's really incredible. And
yeah, I mean, it's like with chocolate at that time in 2008 and 9, it is affordable luxury that you don't want to necessarily give up just because times are hard. Maybe you won't go on the vacation, but you still want to treat yourself. And so chocolate is like that, like great liquor and great spirits and great lipstick, it's sort of things that you want to still indulge in.
Yeah.
And so, so we were really lucky for that.
I'm sure it wasn't all smooth sailing for you, because life as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of ups and downs. When was the most difficult time for you?
Honestly, I think the most difficult time has really been for me the last 3 or 4 years, because we went from being completely at capacity, totally maxed out, to having to jump to the next level. So we built this building and put a whole new equipment line in, built a ton of capacity, had a lot of changes with the team, and it was sort of like the plateaued the business that we didn't think that was going to happen, and like sort of been like, you know, struggling, I think, with that next level. And you know, businesses go through these cycles, and we're finally coming out of it, but it's been a challenge. You know, I remember like when I first started, it took 4 years to be profitable. Then we were profitable. And now I sort of almost feel like, in a way, I'm starting over again in the sense that like this new building, this new space, the second brand, it was so much at one time that it felt like it was starting from zero. The amount of time that I've had to put into these years is so much like this and similar to the beginning.
I see.
And, you know, at least I always look at other people like, oh, everything must be great and perfect. And like, they're just growing and everything.
That's what people think of you.
I know. But I'm like, no, you know, like every day, I swear, every day that phone I hold in my hand has plenty of ups and downs in it. That energy of like, something awesome happened, something terrible happened. We got to fix that. Oh my God, got to fix that. Oh, the people think this. I got to do something with the, you know, it's never just up. I mean, maybe other people are lucky. I can tell you, like, it's just every day is like a mood wave, you know, and it's, you know, and that's where like I was kind of, I think over the last 4 years, which have been so, you know, difficult for me, so much I was like relying on what do other people think? What should I do? Help me, save me. And like at the end of it, I'm like, you know what? You know who saves you? You do. You save you. Nobody saves you.
Right.
You know, stop being a victim. Stop your stupid talking to yourself negatively. Like just freaking do something about it. So I've like, you know, kind of like been finding my, you know, my energy, my mojo, my vibe again, and like going with what I really feel like is right, and sort of going back to the core of what the brand is and was, and you know, the beautiful experiential and gifting, like just going deeper and deeper into that, and that's it. You know, the direct to consumer and the gifting, like that whole thing is really our platform of best. You know, I think so. So yeah.
You've achieved so much success. What have you learned about success that you can share with us?
I mean, I guess that's such a hard one because I'm like, I don't know if I'm really successful. I mean, am I?
Katrina, you are.
I don't know.
I have to remind you.
You know, I think, you know, success is about a team. It's about a leader. It's about trusting your instincts, and it's about being real. It's about collaboration, because it really does feel successful the best. You know, I was saying, like, I love helping entrepreneurs with this accelerator program, or like giving back, or like it sort of is the same with a team. It's like what I'm discovering is that when you view your team as like partners, then it feels totally different. It's like,
I see.
It's I kind of just recently learned, and that to me is like success, because there's good vibes.
Yeah.
When you view your team as partners as opposed to like employees from a traditional sense, if you will. I see. And and you get more out of it. Like when I brainstorm here with people openly, I am like, whoa, like the amount of incredible ideas and creativity that comes from people is so far beyond what I have. And that sort of like the you know, the sum of the people together is far greater than the individuals, you know, added up, you know, quantitatively. And so I know that's a trite phrase, but it's like, it really does resonate with me. And it's exciting for everyone because they feel like they're part of something, like part of a movement, part of a creative process. And though some people think that they're not creative, everybody is. And so when you have that ability to connect people through that, it gives like a vibrational charge to everybody there.
Right.
It just feels like we're on this team, like
you're doing it together.
You're doing it together.
Yeah.
And that to me is really, I think success doesn't exist in numbers for me. Success is most rewarding when it's an energetic sort of concentric, connectivity with your crew, and that's fresh. This is a fresh thing for me to be thinking. And I have just been feeling it lately, and it's been like so good.
Which brings me to the next question. We all know no one succeeds alone, no one achieves dreams alone. So who helped you to get to where you're now?
Oh, I've had so many angels, show up.
I call them angels too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many angels. I mean, I would say like my first mentor was Larry Binstein, who I met on the phone. And he was in Chicago and I was in Dallas, and he had a big European importing food business. And I could not find good chocolate in the country at the time. And he helped me source chocolate and cacao. And he was like an angel, and he just helped me. And then he helped me bring it in. And so like, I think I've had people like that, Jeff Heckman, who was a big lawyer, and he just was like, I think I'm just going to help you pro bono. I'm just going to do this for you.
Wow.
And because, people, I don't know, like I said, I keep talking about this American dream because it's such a real thing. And it's like people want to help other people.
Yeah.
It just feels good. America especially is such a generous country. When you think about the amount of money we donate to charities and causes and things like that, it's just incredible. And I think it's just in our spirit, and so, yeah, I mean, I've just feel like I've been so lucky with so many that have, I've been interacted with. And
right. After 20 years of being an entrepreneur and having achieved so much success, when you look back to your younger self, what would you want to say to your younger Katrina?
I would continue to say, you got this, it's, for me, it's all about like positive talk, like encouragement, like, don't give up and keep doing what you think is right. Don't doubt. Don't doubt. Just keep going. Just keep, and that's what I say to everyone too. It's like, follow your gut, like at all cost. Do it. And it's so scary. And sometimes like the universe has to do things to you because you didn't do it first, because you were like,
it's like pushing yourself into a different direction.
Like I always say when people like get fired or have something big happen, the breakup or it's like, because it was oftentimes you were stagnant and not doing anything about it. And you had to have this happen to you because you weren't going to be, so it's like, remember to be proactive for yourself, and like, take the leap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. So you have achieved so much. What is your dream now?
Oh, you know what? I'm really into mindfulness and energy and like intention, and like you can see on my desk here, I've got like 1 million crystals.
I know we're like surrounded by so many crystals here.
I know. I'm like working on.
We have a candlelight. It's the first time I'm actually doing an interview with a beautiful candlelight in this beautiful office.
I know. It's got like, I know. I love the power within, and I love the energy. I love magic. I love, rituals and like the power of manifestation and all that stuff. And so we're starting to just blend it more into the chocolates, because our guided chocolate tasting is very much like a meditation. When you read what we say on how to taste chocolate, close your eyes and take 3 deep ujjayi breaths, and then open your eyes and then look at the chocolate and what do you see, and describe it. And it's, all those sensorial steps around, touch and smell and hearing. And then when you taste that chocolate, even if you're not a fan of the flavor profile, like let's say it has like an anise flavor, which some people like and some don't, you can still appreciate it at a level that you probably couldn't have if you weren't, in your body and like you sort of viscerally like aware of things. And I think that the crystals have been around forever in ancient, ever Egypt, China, wherever, and the healing powers of them, and, the psychic abilities of them, and, all the things that they can do. And that these million-year-old, energetic vibrational things have energy, but they also can make your energy sort of go into motion. And so very much like if you were to put an intention into chocolate and then eat that, from a cellular level, you start to change. And, people have done, this is ancient. This is nothing new. This is wisdom though. And this is ancient wisdom. And it's the same thing that you can do with crystals. Like you can hold a crystal in your hand, you can put an intention for it. And then you are reminded with that crystal to that you have set that intention, and the crystal does work to shift things for you. So I feel like there is this sort of the same kind of thing that happens with chocolate, with cacao beans, which is also super ancient and was so, there was such a sort of spiritual quality to it. It gave virility to Montezuma. It was so, valuable. They viewed it as currency. Like it was buried in tombs with people. So I think they are similar in many ways. And so I'm trying to connect them through collections that we're doing now and through our boutiques. And, I think as the world gets to this maxed out point with over communication, we need these small reminders, rituals, moments, things that can help ground us again.
Yeah.
And be human again. Yeah. And, of nature again. And, so like this is so Vosges 2.0, I think, for me and for us. And
what would be your words of advice for people who are trying to achieve their dreams?
I would say, dream big and write it down.
I always say that for my community. Yes. Yeah. Write it down, right?
Write it down.
Yeah. Do you write down your dreams?
I do. Oh my gosh. I have 750, like whatever in my phone. Actually, I do have a journal, but I keep notes on all my ideas and I write them down. I will say, I do think it's, for me, better to write it on paper.
Me too.
Because it's like you visually see the way you write it. Yes. And so then visually I remember the page.
Absolutely.
And I think writing is incredibly important.
Right. It gives you more clarity.
Yes.
There's like a magical power in actually committing it to paper.
There is. Mm-hmm. There is. And they say that's why like cursive writing is so important for people to know how to do, because there's a connectivity in the brain when the idea flows. So when you actually write something, the idea is richer, bigger, deeper, the way you have to write. And so, yeah, I believe in like the writing, the physical, I guess, what is it? Depiction, visual of your idea on a piece of paper.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I certainly have encountered that in my life, where I would write down my dreams, and many years later, I would actually discover, oh my God, I've done all of this and I had it written down. So. Yeah.
Yes. I did that as a kid too. I wrote down, I want to live in another country. I want to learn how to fly a plane. And I'll, like this list of things, and I'll never forget the list. And I just kept checking things off the list.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Oh my mom still has my dream list from like my middle school years. And my sister took a picture of it and sent it to me the other day. And I saw that I had achieved all of it, including writing a book and all of that. And so I absolutely believe there's power and magic in writing down your dreams on paper. And then it will become a reality. It absolutely will. Yeah. I have to ask you, do you have a favorite flavor?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so hard. It totally depends on my mood. Mm-hmm. And like, what is my favorite now? Right at this very moment. What do I crave?
Is that like asking you to pick your favorite child?
It is. Oh my gosh, it is. But I'm thinking to myself, lately I've been like looking, like I taste everything, that we make. And there's been some lately that I'm like, oh, where's that one? I really want to try that one. There's one in the new vault that I love. So we did a collection that's launching just in a couple weeks here of a 20-year retrospective of chocolates that are no longer in our main collections, and they're coming back for this one. And there's one that I love because it forces me to eat it so slowly, and I just appreciate it so much. It's called Le Truffe Paprika, and it's just a fresh ganache and dark chocolate, 72%. And then it's rolled in this special Kalaskin paprika from Hungary. And it is so beautiful and unique. And I love to combine it with something like, your favorite, most delicious, deep, rich, wine or cocktail. And like, I've been craving that one lately. But this collection is like so special to me because it's basically a retrospective of my trip around the world.
Wow.
And so I like them all, but
I love the Wulu Mulu.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you used to have that in a bar, and now you have it in truffle. You have to bring it back to the bar.
I have to write that down.
Because I was like, why is that gone? I also love the Barcelona bar. A lot of my guy friends like the bacon one.
Yes. Oh my god.
At first they're like, what is this? And then now everyone is like, can't wait to try it. And I have to tell you my story with Vosges. Like,
tell me.
The first day I walked into your Soho store in New York, I just like fell in love, and I was like, oh my god, I want to like live in this store. And I went to UC Berkeley for law school, but I was in New York to study for my bar exam. And I was rented a small little apartment in Soho, and I was so tired from staring at law books all day. And then every day I would take a little coffee break, chocolate break, and walk and go to your store. And then after a while, the people started to recognize me. They're like, oh, she's here again. And then I tell them the story of how I'm like sitting for the bar, and they would give me pep talks and encouragement. So that was like the highlight of my day every day. And people are so kind and encouraging. And so I will always remember that. So, I painted like my bedroom in purple, and my room looks kind of similar to your store. And I brought so many of my families and my friends, like the people who are so close to me, to the store. So Katrina, thank you so much for creating such a beautiful chocolate and beautiful store and beautiful brand. And thank you so much for doing what you do.
Oh, thank you.
This was
awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I cannot wait to share your story with my listeners. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was awesome.
I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to see the show notes for today's episode, just open up your podcast app and click on today's show notes. Or you can go to selinalee.co/episode 13. That is CELINALEE.co/episode 13. And you can also see the show notes there. I've also put together a free guide to the 3 steps to finding true career fulfillment. And I know this is a question that I get a lot about how to figure out what we're supposed to do with our life. So if you're interested in learning about it, you can also download it on my website. And please subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And while you're at it, I would really appreciate it if you can please write me a review. It will really help me to spread the word and get discovered by new listeners. For questions about my coaching or to reach out to me with any thoughts or questions about my podcast, you can also visit my website at selinalee.co, and I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you so much, and I'll be back soon with another episode. Have a great week, everyone.